Hey guys, Elizabeth Quinn here again with Elizabeth's Scenes and Scents, and today I am bringing you the evening edition of Elizabeth's Scenes and Scents, where we are going to have a very special tea and wax chat. I took a little poll a couple weeks ago to see if any of you were interested in my other great love, which is tea, when it comes to things in the home anyway. And we had some very, very enthusiastic responses, so let's dive right on in. Now first, I would like to share with you all about just the wonderful, wonderful product of tea itself, how we best prepare it, my favorites, and then some of the wax bars that I have from Scentsy that I think would either have very similar notes to what you're drinking in your tea or would be very complimentary. So let's get started with the basics. The most important thing that us Americans have needed to learn, if any of you that are British or otherwise are watching, is you need a good kettle. This one happens to be a Cuisinart, and I received it from my brother for Christmas, but he's bought me several over the years because I drink so much tea that I actually do in my electric kettles. They die on me. So this one has a temperature control, and it will give you an exact temperature for the type of tea that you desire to brew. So why would I need different temperatures for different kinds of tea? Isn't tea just tea? Well, no. And that is the first and most important thing that I would like all of you to get from this video. Tea does all come from one plant, the Camellia sinensis, but that leaf, as you can see here, this is a green tea. That leaf can be prepared in so many different ways. You start with white tea, which is just the baby bud of tea, and you very carefully pick and dry that. You have your green tea, like I just showed you. You have partially prepared and then fermented teas, such as your oolong. Then you have your regular black tea, which we are the most familiar with, which is completely fermented. All of these are dried. And then you have herbals and tisanes and so many other kinds of tea. It can get very confusing. So for today's video, we're going to stick with green and black and just a little bit of herbal to show you some of my absolute favorites of all time. But first, if I'm going to be talking with you, I need to brew a good pot. So the other essential is a very nice teapot. This one happens to come from Pottery Barn, but it's very, very reminiscent of old-fashioned transferware. And I typically drink out of this cup with it. This one is an old-fashioned English transferware. It says on the bottom that this has something to do with Wedgwood. So this is the countryside pattern, and it is beautiful. I have dishes to set the whole table in this, and I love it. But when you are collecting things like teapots and teawares, it's so much fun just to have random mismatched teacups. So I brought a couple other of my absolute favorites up. They're so beautiful, and they all have embossed markings on the bottom to tell you who made it and where. This one happens to be by a company that has by appointment. It doesn't say by appointment to the Queen, but if you get one of those, then that is a very upstanding company in Britain. And here's another one of my absolute favorite spring-summer cup and saucer combos. The beautiful little bird on here is just the best. Now, here in America, we do have Tea Time Magazine, we have Victoria, and we have Southern Lady, who all do like to discuss teaware and tablewares and all of that, and I've been reading those for years. So if you need a little bit more education or you're curious about tea as far as culture and history, I would absolutely recommend any of those. So let's get into making a good cup of tea. The first thing you need is the precise temperature on that kettle. So I had this one programmed for just a good green tea. The next thing that you need is green tea. Now, I have no problem with a bag. Some of what I'm going to show you is bagged, but the very best type of tea is going to be loose leaf like this. Why is that important, you ask? Well, because the tea leaf, when it gets into the water, it expands to release all of its flavor. And so if it's little itty bitty chopped up bits of tea that are probably not the best quality to begin with, and then you throw them into a bag and they do not have a place to expand and they're not a full leaf, you will not get a beautiful cup. So I already prepared 1 teaspoon per cup of hot water. So I did 3 into this. This is a tea filter, which is another thing that you absolutely must have if you're going to have a good cup of loose leaf tea. This is just one type. There are so many different varieties out there, but that's one I have in the house. So this would make an entire pot if I wanted to fill it. At the moment, excuse my dogs. Moosey, leave it. Excuse me. So at the moment, I have 3 teaspoons of tea in this tea filter, and I'm going to put in 3 cups. Now, my mother never seems to think that measuring or being precise or having the right temperature, well, sometimes she does the right temperature, is important. So then when she comes over, she asks, so why is your tea so much better than mine? And I'm sure that you know the answer to that, which is, if you do it right, you will get a good brew. So we're going to use the 3-minute timer, maybe, that's on here. Well, we're supposed to use the 3-minute timer. For the sake of the video, I think we'll just kind of wing it. But you're going to brew that tea until it is the appropriate time, and you use the right temperature. So for most green teas, you want between 2 and 3 minutes. And my kettle doesn't want to shut off here. You will just let it steep in the pot until the time is over, and then you take it out. Do not squeeze the bag, because then you're going to get bitterness, extra bitterness that you don't want. And then you can pour it out to yourself and all of your friends that are there for your tea party. So enough on how you do that. Let's go on to the important part, which is, what teas do I love? So we started with the green category, and one of my all-time favorites is this wonderful pineapple green. Now, Republic of Tea is a really good company that I have been using for years and years. And in this case, this one only comes in tea bags. You can't get it loose leaf, but it's so good I just don't care. So the pineapple ginger green is my top pick for green tea of anything that I've ever had, just because I love the flavor profile, and it is just always a good cup of tea. Now after that, they have a really nice blueberry superfruit, and this is really good. This is a lighter, very, not grassy in a bad way, but a light, happy green cup of tea with a nice smooth hint of blueberry. So this is a favorite of mine that I go back to over and over and over again from the same company. They also make a lovely Moroccan Mint. This is excellent iced. Very good on a hot day in the summer. Now, to make it iced tea, you double the amount of actual tea leaves. Do it for the same period of time, and then pour it over ice, or chill it first and then pour it over ice later so that it doesn't get cloudy, and that is very good. And then one for right now that I just opened, I just ordered this to do this video, is Spring Cherry. There are many different companies that do similar teas. These just happen to be ones that I have gone back to over and over again because they're just good. So then the one that we are currently brewing, and this particular sack's a little the worse for wear, but it's lemon meringue, which really smells, well, like a bar that we have over here. Oh, it just smells like a lemon meringue pie, and it tastes amazingly light with just a hint of lemon. Absolutely wonderful. So those are my favorite in the green tea department. You can have regular green tea with no flavor at all, but I happen to love the way that fruit and green tea play together. It is just so, so nice. And there are tropical types of green tea out there that are just amazing other than the pineapple ginger. You can get melon green teas, you can get coconut green teas, you can get lovely lavender with green tea because it's not overwhelming. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So then we move on to the next category. The next category, I only have one represented, and that is oolong tea. Now, oolong tea is partially fermented. It's going to be darker than a green tea. And here you will see it's kind of lumpy usually, a little bit different. Oh, this is so good. This is a toasted coconut oolong from Simpson and Vale. But oolong, it has a very unique character, both in the way that the leaves look and the way that it tastes. And it is slightly more expensive typically than your regular blacks or your greens, but you can infuse it, meaning that you can brew it over and over again multiple times. And so it's definitely worth it. And this happens to be my absolute favorite of all time because it's just a little bit nutty. That's the best part about oolong tea. And it's a little bit toasty. You really don't need any sweetness with oolong either because it has its own very unique qualities that make it quite addictive. So I'm pretty sure that we've had enough time go by. So let's take this out and I'll put it aside. And we're going to pour a lovely cup of lemon meringue green. Yes, beautiful. Yes, beautiful. So this is just one of those things that is a very peaceful ritual that I look forward to on a daily or at least a few times a week basis, depending on how much chaos is going on. Because coffee, I will say, is easier just to push the button, grab the cup and go. tea is much more relaxing, much more elegant, much more of a special comforting thing for me. So let's move on to my black teas. Another one, which is from Republic of Tea that I just adore, is Blackberry Sage. Now this one really has dried blackberries in it, and it is, did I forget? I forgot to open this one. All right, hang on here. There we go. Yep, this one's amazing. Oh, the sweetness of the blackberry and all the tea bits, I can't dump this out, but there are actual freeze-dried blackberry chunks in this thing. And this is grounded and earthy and sweet all at the same time. One of my all-time favorites. If you have never tried something from Republic of Tea before and you love black tea, this is probably the one I would recommend, as long as you like flavored. So then after that, I have another one that this is my younger daughter's favorite, and it's excellent. This is Vanilla Almond. So this has the perfect balance of the vanilla and the almond. There are little bits of vanilla in here and almond, dried almond bits. Lovely tea. The cup is just a beautiful amber, liquidy, gorgeous, gorgeous pour. So then after that, this is the only one in this particular video where I'm going to include a holiday tea, but it's so good. I use this all year round. Oh, this has fruit, that smooth, dried, autumn into winter kind of fruit medley. And it is a winner. So it's called Tea of Good Tidings. Sometimes you can get it on their website. Again, this is Republic of Tea. These canisters that look like this are all Republic of Tea. You can sometimes get this on their website all year round, and sometimes they pull it or they sell out. And this is just subtle and fruity and wonderful. So your black teas, you're going to want to do 1 teaspoon per cup into the pot at 212. The others you want to be more careful, like with your green teas, 170 to 180, usually 175 degrees, or if you have a cool kettle that just lets you push buttons for green and black and whatever. That's why I love these, the Cuisinart, and I don't remember what other company I had in the past, but I literally did in 2 of them because I pushed the buttons so many times every day for years. So anyway, so be very careful with the temperature and the timing. 3 minutes or less on a green tea, 5 minutes, somewhere between 4 and 5 minutes, depending on how strong you like your black tea, at boiling. Oolong tea is kind of in the middle. It's like 185 to 190, depending on the variety and who tells you to do what, and usually about 4 minutes to steep, sometimes longer. So back to my black teas. Now, there is a special black tea that's just dear to many people's hearts, and that is Earl Grey. Earl Grey can come from pretty much any purveyor. I have a favorite, a couple of favorites that I don't physically have. Rishi makes, I think, the best, far and away best Earl Grey I've ever had, as far as the wonderful aroma from the bergamot oil, which is what makes an Earl Grey tea so special. This one's quite good, though. This is the Earl Grey Supreme from Harney & Sons, and it makes a good balanced cup. Now, one that I don't have that is totally a favorite of mine is from a place called the Tea Table. I'm going to show you a different tea that we'll talk about in a minute. The Tea Table, they don't produce their own tea, but they're a wonderful purveyor that brings all sorts of good teas together on their website. And I've been ordering them for years from them, and they're Earl Grey Rose and Lavender. If you like Earl Grey, but you're kind of bored with the regular old so-so whatever, get the Earl Grey Rose and Lavender. It is so elegant. You feel like you should be reading The Secret Garden and sipping your tea at the same time when you have that one. So another one that is excellent, a little lighter, is the Earl Grey Moonlight, which is from Adagio. And also, I'm really enjoying this one. This is a little creamier. This is Pinky Up, and it is the Earl Grey Macaron. So those are wonderful. Earl Grey, you could just do an entire video on all sorts of different kinds of Earl Grey, from your very plain to all sorts of different other things mixed in. You can do green Earl Grey, you can do just about anything with it, but it's a very special tea that when you think of the quintessentially English brew, other than something like your British breakfast or, you know, just a really good, strong, stodgy black tea, you think of Earl Grey. So then after that, I do have a couple of like very special teas that are still in the black tea category. This one is called Cozy Comfort, and oh my gosh, You have to read Simpson and Vale, their instructions carefully because their proportions are different than most any other company. So at first I thought I didn't like the tea. Then I read carefully what they told me to do. You need more tea, less water, and less brewing time than the typical with this company. But oh my gosh, this tea in the fall, any time of year is great, but in the fall, this is like being out in a forest with like black walnuts and acorns, and it's just perfect. So that is Cozy Comfort by Simpson and Vale. So then a couple from the tea table that I have just loved for years. This is probably one of the most classy teas that I'm showing you today. This is Margaret's Hope. It's a Darjeeling second flush. What's a second flush? It's the second time that they pick that particular tea, just the way that the system of picking, when you're growing the tea, they have different growth spurts, I guess you could call them, or flushes. So the second flush of this particular area, which I believe is probably in India, this tea is complex. It has a little bit of sweetness. It is just the most lovely cup of beautiful black, and Darjeeling is a very elegant black tea. They call it the champagne of teas. Oh, this is gorgeous. So if you're a tea snob, try that. And also, and this goes with one of my bars, this is Lapsang Souchong. And it smells like a bonfire, and I'm not even kidding, and it is amazing. It is this awesome, smoky, deep tea. This one is the Lapsang Souchong Natural, and I get it from the tea table. And it's just incredible. Now, I've told you in certain videos about my best friend. She is as hardcore a tea drinker as I am, and everything else on this table she would do. But she's the one that went to Africa, and she cannot stand that tea. Like, she'd shoot me if I served her a cup of that. So after that, just as honorable mentions, I don't always drink these, and I don't have a preferred brand, but you have to talk about things like Irish breakfast and English breakfast, which I'm out of at the moment, and Scottish breakfast, which are these just wonderful, very, very rounded, very, very robust teas that they drink in England and Ireland and Scotland. And I don't have one that's like a Welsh blend, but they are very UK, and they're very, very good. And I have always loved that. Like growing up, a good cup of English breakfast or Irish breakfast, and then you have to have, milk and sugar. That's just pretty much how you have to drink that. It is so comforting. And then I have a couple of bagged teas that they're not fancy pedigree, but they're very dear to my heart because I grew up with these. Constant Comment from Bigelow. Yes, it's run-of-the-mill supermarket, but it is so good. It's got orange and spices. It is the quintessential tea that I grew up drinking, and it always comforts me. And then another one that I like is their English tea time for the middle of the afternoon. Now, after we've talked about all these different kinds of tea, there is one other kind, and there are several other kinds that I'm not addressing today, but one other kind that I want to talk about. If you can't do caffeine, and you also just don't love tea, because I have some friends that try as they will, they don't like tea. They do not like the taste of the tea leaf. There is such a thing as herbal tea. So here's another really, really nice, similar to Constant Comment, just, take out the tea. This is the Orange and Spice by Bigelow, and there is a whole world of herbal teas. You can get lavender, you can get mint, you can get rose, and you can just go on and on and on and on and on. I happen to like the spicy ones, shocker, because just like with my wax, I love a good spicy tea. Although I don't like hardcore cinnamon tea, I will tell you that. The spicy fireball cinnamon teas, can't do them. They're just too strong. But this one's perfect. So I wanted to recommend the Cardamom Cinnamon Warm Your Heart Tea, which is also from Republic. You can see a theme here. I like Republic of Tea a lot. They're always very consistent, and even their tea bags are excellent quality. So this one's really, really great. So all of that has to do with some of my absolute favorite teas. Now, believe it or not, that's probably only a quarter of my collection, and I will come back and do like a harvest and holiday tea roundup, probably October or November, because there are lots of things that I did not share with you that I absolutely adore. But for the things that we have here, I was looking through my wax collection, and I did find a decent number that have similar notes to these teas. So let's take a look here. The one that was the easiest to match was my dear Constant Comment which I honestly think the notes in Mandarin Moon are very similar. Now, none of the bars I'm going to share with you have an actual tea note, so I'm talking about the notes that are in with the tea, the mix of spices, the mix of herbs, the mix of flowers. But this is just a wonderful, wonderful bar, and I have literally brewed myself a cup of Constant Comment and just sailed away on orange and spice comfort. So then another one that is similar is Cozy Spice, and of all the bars that I have, this one I think smells the most like an actual cup of tea that has a little bit of spice in it, so a very gently spiced black tea, and then a little drop of cream or milk. Cozy Spice is so good. Where Mandarin Moon is just lots of orange and spices, this is just the most wonderful blend of spices with that slight creaminess. And the tea that I thought matched that the very best was this Tea of Good Tidings. It has a little bit more fruit in the notes, but somehow when you add your milk and sugar, it tastes a lot like this smells. So that was wonderful. Then, the one that I showed you last was the Cardamom Cinnamon. Now this has ginger, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon. It's just a wonderful, slightly mellow spice bomb. I mean, if a spice can be mellow, but it doesn't bite you like those cinnamon fireball teas that I don't care for. Oh, yeah. And my favorite clove and cinnamon, it's like this. It's very similar with the notes. So this one matched the cinnamon and cardamom tea. So then I was digging around, and one of these teas that my daughter just loved that I showed you, the Vanilla Almond. The Vanilla Almond is very much like a mix. So I had to do a mix. I wish I had just an almond, like a marzipan almond note that I could put with this, because that would be a little more authentic. But 1 cube of almond croissant to 2 cubes of Simply Vanilla did give me a lovely mix that I thought went with this quite well. But just don't overdo the almond croissant, because there isn't really a bakery note in this. But, you know, if you want your bakery, go get yourself an almond croissant. Have your cup of tea, have your almond croissant, have your bars. Wonderful, wonderful day. So after that, my favorite, Palo Santo and Lapsang Souchong, they go together, absolutely. Smoky and rich and woodsy. Oh yeah. And actually the tea is stronger than the bar, but if you're crazy like me and you like that smokiness, Palo Santo, Lapsang Souchong, wonderful day, good cup of tea. So after that, I was trying to figure out which bar went with my Cozy Comfort. And it's honestly a bar that I don't love, but I sure do like it in tea. The Cozy Comfort has this wonderful nutty woodsy quality, and toasted acorn and oat comes very, very close to that. I was really surprised. This is just a little bit sweeter, which is odd, but it has chestnut in it. And you can get chestnut tea too. It's just not my absolute favorite. So these two I think would, these two would be very, very good together. All right, and then after that, this amazing Darjeeling Margaret's Flush, or Margaret's Hope Second Flush. Too fancy even for me to say. This has deep notes, and I thought that vanilla oud went very, very well with that, especially the tea leaves. Once you brew tea, it changes a little bit, and what you get, you know, in the nose and in the air is different than what you taste. But that's the wonder of food. Everything has different layers of complexity. What you smell, what you see, what you taste, how it feels. But this has some similar notes to this. So I guess leather and oud wood can be experienced in tea too. And then I have a couple that corresponded pretty well to green tea. Oh, and I can't forget Relax. Relax was the most like my Earl Grey Moonlight. This one has all this wonderful sort of vanilla and creamy note. Yeah, that goes with the Earl Grey. Now, honestly, this one doesn't brew up as strong as it does smell good, but I think that it matches Relax so well. So there's no tea note in this, but it has the amber, the bergamot, the vanilla sugar that is very similar to that wonderful rounded quality in a cream style Earl Grey. So then the last two that I had, I don't actually have lavender butterfly, which is a beautiful green and lavender tea, and I don't have just a plain lavender herbal, but the rose and lavender that I talked about, all of those, I just don't have any at the moment, would be very good represented by this bar, which is French lavender. And this is such a well done lavender that it really does go with the type of lavender that you get in tea that I've been drinking for years. And then last but not least, what I started out with, brewing some lemon meringue by Adagio. The luscious lemon bar smells so much like that. And it's just lovely. It's light and lovely. So here we go. We have lemon meringue. Yes. Yes. And we have luscious lemon. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed my little jaunt into the tea world. You need to get yourself a very good kettle if you're a serious tea drinker. Do not brew water in the microwave. Cardinal sin of us crazy Americans. Use a very nice teapot that will hold the heat when you're brewing, especially if you want more than 1 cup. Have a lot of fun collecting wonderful, playful tea wares. They're not very expensive. You just go to your local antique store, or I like to call them junk shops, and do spend the money on the actual tea and the filters to put the loose leaf tea in, and have a good brewing experience where you pay attention to temperature and time and the type of tea, and you will have a wonderful, wonderful cup. So the next time that you sit down and watch Elizabeth Scenes and Scents, you are prepared to enjoy. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.